Welcome in, everybody, to the CFB Nation All-America podcast. I'm Bill Trocchi, senior editor at sportingnews.com, alongside Bill Bender, our national college football writer at sportingnews.com, and the president of the Football Writers Association of America for 1 year, tenure, 2 year. What do you got?
Yeah, it's 1 year. So I've got
tenure.
a couple duties that I've got to get done here over the next couple months. But yeah, it's going well.
I know you're a busy man. You're a popular man in the writing community. So we are going to we're coming to you live on our CFB Nation YouTube channel again, of course. If you want to subscribe, go over to youtube.com, search CFB Nation, and click subscribe. We're getting a little following here in our chat room. It's very fun to kind of go through the show with some people who are throwing out some opinions and asking questions, answering our trivia question, which we'll get to in a second. But Bill, this is always one of my favorite times of the week, talking college football with you. It's like I try to decide what did I like better? Do I like sitting down with you doing these two pods on Tuesday and Thursday morning, or do I like sitting down at noon on Saturday when the action is about to kick off? I'm trying to figure out which one I like more. I think I like them both about the same.
Well, I like this part of the week because we're almost there, and this is we're most of our content at Sporting News is in, and you kind of like start to peek ahead to next week, but then you remember that hey, just when you think you have it all figured out. And I was on a hit in Arkansas earlier this morning, and they said it's not the sexiest weekend, but when you say that, that's when it happens. We only have 2 ranked matchups this weekend, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot of subplots to it. It's going to be a fun week.
No doubt about it. All right, before we get into our 2 biggest games, of course, Vanderbilt and Alabama, unbelievable, and Miami, Florida State. We're going to go through. I want to talk a little bit about this year in quarterbacks, how it's been a little bit of a strange year. Some of the veteran quarterbacks have not come through, and ESPN had an interesting piece that kind of brought that to light this week. So we're going to quickly go through that. Then we'll go through, of course, our viewer's guide. But first, I want to do some Trocchi trivia. Florida State and Miami renew their rivalry this weekend. The schools have combined to produce 5 Heisman Trophy winners. Who were the 5 Heisman winners, and how many of those players went on to win the national championship? I think you can do this. I think you can get it, but it should be up your alley. So it's all in the heyday of Florida State, Miami. We're going to renew that and look at some of the things. We got a cool piece on sportingnews.com that I'll let you talk about when we get to the portion of the Miami, Florida State portion of our program later on. But let's kick this thing off with how it's been a very strange year for quarterbacks. So, and every summer, and usually we're very accurate on these. We rank the top 25 quarterbacks coming into the league. Coming into the season. This year we had Arch Manning at number 1. We had Cade Klubnik. We had Drew Aller, Garrett Nussmeier. And we weren't the only people to have all these people. Sam Levitt at Arizona State, Lenore Sellers of South Carolina. Well, after September's action wrapped, and 1 week in August, so 5 weeks into the season, Bill Connelly at ESPN, very respected analyst, leans heavily into analytics. He had his top 10 quarterbacks thus far this season. No career marks help them, etc. It's all about how they've played this year. His top 10 did not match anyone in our preseason top 10.
Right.
He had Jaden Mayava at USC as number 1, Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt, Trinidad Chambliss, Ole Miss, Fernando Mendoza, Indiana, Dante Moore, who you saw in person last week at Oregon, Brandon Sorsby, a surprise name there at Cincinnati, C.J. Carr, Notre Dame's new superstar, Ty Simpson, who's really come on, Damon Williams from Washington, and Jalen Daniels from Kansas, who's putting up good numbers, but they're not winning. So I guess my question to you, Bill, is how strange has this year been? And are you surprised that, what's happened with Nussmeier and Aller and Klubnik and the veteran guys we thought were going to kind of rise to the top.
Well, I mean, when you make those lists, you trust the veteran guys. So, I mean, it's not, and then we went in on Arch and Lagway and on the potential there. So I think Sam Levitt's still having a really good season. So I don't really worry too much about that. I think some of it comes down to quarterback efficiency. And if you look at the FBS, 11 guys have a efficiency rating of 180 or more. And there's some surprises on that list. Like, it doesn't surprise me that Jaden Mayava is good with Lincoln Riley, or that Julian Sayin or Dante Moore or Ty Simpson are having success. I think CJ Carr's been a pleasant surprise. That soon. You mentioned Sorsby. He's really good. He's got a little bit of, I was talking to Ken Brew in Cincinnati last week. He mentioned comparing him to Baker Mayfield a little bit. He got a little bit of that in his game. And then Fernando Mendoza obviously having a huge season. So to me, it's like,
and Chambliss, Ole Miss, where the heck did he come from?
Yeah, we can't predict that. Sorry we didn't have the Ferris State transfer on our top 25 list that was a backup quarterback coming into the season.
Do your research, Bill. Come on now.
Apparently. and then Jalen Daniels is still around. So, I mean, we'll re-rank these guys next week. But at the end of the season, we're going to re-rank them again. And the one guy that I'm saying, a lot of people are piling on Arch. I'm not out on him yet.
Nope.
I've kind of been pretty measured in my takes with him all the way through, and it's paid off. So I'm going to stay on that. Now, if he has a really bad game in the swamp, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, and the other thing is, you hear me say this all the time. I just don't know how many truly, if we're grading these quarterbacks trying to make them NFL draft picks, there aren't a lot that I would be like, yeah, I'd start my franchise with that guy. There just aren't, not in this draft class.
Interesting that Garrett Nussmeier's injury has kind of become public a little bit. I think I heard some Andy Staples mentioned it casually on his podcast. A few other people started talking about it. Brian Kelly addressed it this week. So he is dealing with some kind of oblique or abs or core, lower body kind of, twisting, throwing injury that they have an off week this week. So that could account for a little bit of his dip in production.
Well, yeah. And then Klubnik and Aller are 3-year guys. So it's just, I think both are just struggling a little bit. And that's what's going on with those two. Now, Nussmeier's a little surprising. He was a high volume passer that we thought would make some mistakes, but he's just been off all year. So it's a little bit like Quinn Ewers last year, where he had that injury that it didn't come out till afterwards. So what are we doing injury reports for if we're hiding them?
And I'm wondering about Arch in that same context. Remember his, weird reaction to a throw he had in the second week of the season. His throwing motion doesn't look the same as it did last year. Maybe there's something going on there too. So anyway, just wanted to touch on that before we get into our viewer's guide for week 6, which is going to be a really fun week. And we're going to kick it off Saturday, the noon window. We've got Wisconsin at number 20, Michigan. Michigan is a 17-point favorite. The heat is obviously on Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, even though I don't think people expect him to win this game. Another ugly showing. It's going to raise the questions as to whether he's the next coach to get fired. I think you talked about this in our editorial meeting yesterday. He would be the 6th opening if you include Stanford so far, which is just amazing, seeing that it's only October 2nd. His quarterback, Billy Edwards Jr., a game-time decision with a knee injury. He missed Wisconsin's 27-10 loss to Maryland last week. Danny O'Neill played in his place. Here are the numbers on Fickell, Bill. He's 14-15 at Wisconsin, 0-7 against ranked teams with an average margin of 15.5 points. He lost to Oregon by 3 last year, Big Ten champs. So that was his best showing. But I don't know. I think he might be in for another double-digit loss here with Michigan, traveling to Michigan.
They'll battle. Traditionally this game can be tight. Last time they played, Michigan won 38-17, but it was tight for a minute. Fickell, obviously, with the Ohio State background, I think this is a back against the wall moment, whether or not they have Edwards or not. And I think they'll come out and fight in the first half. Their defense is solid, will be a test for Bryce Underwood. So we'll see if Michigan That's kind of their missing piece. If they get a little more efficient in the pass offense, they're better than last year. Last year was horrible. But if they continue to improve, I mean, I've already sketched it. It builds up to next week. They've got to get through this one, play USC. If they go out to the West Coast and beat USC, you're looking at 10-1, in my opinion. I think they'll be 10-1 when they play Ohio State. And if Ohio State beats them and both teams go to the playoff, we'll question the existential meaning of the game. But we'll save that for that. But they do have to get through this game. I think it'll be tight for a half, but I like Michigan in the second half.
Yeah, they have, I looked it up, 7 straight unranked opponents before Ohio State. So take care of business, keep your head down. All of a sudden, you're in playoff conversation, sort of like Notre Dame.
Yeah, USC is the one they get. USC is kind of a ranked opponent to me, though, because like you're going out there, they're going to sell out the Coliseum.
They're not. They're not ranked,
but they're good. They're good enough to beat Michigan. I don't know that anybody else is on their schedule. Maybe Michigan State, maybe Washington, but that USC game's not going to be easy. So that's kind of
a little bit of a parallel to Notre Dame's 10-2, road
Correct.
to 10-2. They got that USC hurdle, which is they're not ranked, but it's always a good, tough game and things like that. So, so we'll see what happens there. Keep the clicker handy in that noon window. We've got Clemson at North Carolina preseason. We had that one on our quote-unquote big games list here at Sporting News. Not so big anymore, but we get to see Dabo and Coach Hoodie go at it noon on ESPN. Number 14, also Iowa State at Cincinnati. In this window, we've got Kentucky at number 12, Georgia on ABC, and we've got number 22, Illinois at Purdue on the Big Ten Network. Any of those grab you?
Yeah, I'll flip through Clemson, North Carolina briefly. I think that Iowa State-Cincinnati game is so interesting to me because we talked about Sorsby a little bit. Iowa State with Rocco Becht on the road, and that Cincinnati road game in the Big 12 is unfamiliar territory for a lot of guys. Nippert Stadium's in an interesting, place. It's kind of just it's right there, and their crowd is pretty good, probably riled up, and so that's got a habit game for Iowa State as an underdog, which makes it even more interesting in this wide open Big 12. So that's probably the one that why is Cincinnati favored? Okay, I kind of understand why. But Iowa State coming off a bye week with that defense had a key injury in the secondary, but they still should be right in that.
Yeah, Cincinnati had a big win at Kansas last week. Not easy place with like Daniels playing as well as he is. So, yeah, that one will be a good one. 2 good Big 12 quarterbacks going at it, and we'll see what happens there. All right, afternoon window, number 16 Vanderbilt at number 10 Alabama, 3:30 on ABC. Alabama is a 10.5 point favorite. Vanderbilt, ABC, game day.
I mean, you take it away, man. This is your school. This is your
moment. Is this
moment.
real? Is this happening?
I think I'm going to let you talk. I think.
Well, Vanderbilt beat Alabama 40-35 last year. Everybody, remembers that game. And that was the thing I remember about that game was Alabama pulled within 5 and kicked off with 2:44 to play. And they had 3 timeouts and the 2-minute warning. And they were going to stop Vanderbilt 3 and out, go down, score a touchdown, win the game. Vanderbilt somehow ran out the clock. The final 2:44. They had a 7-play, 54-yard drive, everything on the ground, and they kneeled it out and set off the celebration where the goalpost ended up 2 miles from campus in the Cumberland River in downtown Nashville. Everybody had fun with that. And, Vanderbilt wasn't as good last year as they were this year. They did not. Funny, after that game, they scored 40 against Alabama. They did not exceed 24 points on offense the rest of the season. And I think Pavia was hurt a little bit. He was playing injured, and he got healthy in the bowl game. They scored 35 points in the bowl game leading up to that. And this year, he's been healthy. The offense has been really, really good. Defense is better. I think they're definitely better than they were last year. Is Alabama better than they were last year? Maybe. Ty Simpson has really been on the upward climb. He looked awesome against Georgia, I thought. They are missing their starting edge rusher, Kwar Rashaw. He was hurt against Georgia. And then Ja Merriam Lathan, the rotational linebacker, is also out for the year. He got hurt in the practice leading up to Georgia. So, at one point, on one hand, it's like Vanderbilt, Alabama, like, of course, Alabama's going to kill them. But on the other hand, if you really look at it, I do think Vanderbilt has a chance. They have a very short tackling defense this year. I think Alabama's going to score. I think both teams are going to score. Pavia has really, really been accurate this year. He's been very durable. He hasn't gotten hurt. I mean, he doesn't protect himself. He goes out there, he throws blocks. He does not take care of himself, which is a little reckless, but so far so good on that end. So I don't know what to expect. I know game day is going to be there, and people are saying Alabama's not going to take Vanderbilt lightly, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think the atmosphere in the crowd, I don't think the crowd is going to take Vanderbilt seriously. It's not going to be.
I think they are.
Ooh, they think? I don't think it's going to be an Alabama-Auburn situation or an Alabama-Georgia situation. I think they're still going to see Vanderbilt on the side of the helmet.
See, I think they've heard enough, from I think that crowd's going to be electric, honestly. I do, because they've heard enough about Vanderbilt. They know about last year's loss. Everything you said about Pavia is true. I think he's the key. And we have an article, obviously, Johnny Manziel is going to be there apparently. And I am always one to point out that, and it comes out in the article as well, like Manziel beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, but the second game was better. The sequel was better. It was, he had like 500 and some total yards in College Station. They were going back and forth. And so basically
45-40.
Yeah, it was a ridiculous game. And, Mike Evans is catching touchdowns and AJ McCarron's it was one of the most excited I've been to watch a game that didn't involve one of my teams ever. And it lived up to it because it's kind of like nobody got what they wanted. There was some college football fans wanted Manziel to get put in his place, and he really didn't. And then the others wanted Alabama to lose because they were on top of college football. I think this one is tilted way more in favor of people want to see Vanderbilt win again. There's maybe a few college football fans out there outside of Alabama that are like, man, I'm sick of this Pavia dude. But I think that mindset's gone by the wayside. So, I'm just looking forward to an entertaining game, but I think they've got Alabama's full attention. For some reason, and you can explain this to me, there's a little bit of bulletin board material that always runs in this series the last couple of years. And Pavia left a little bit in the Chris Lowe article, but I'm just looking, this will be the best game of the day. That's what now as an alum, what are your emotions here? Is it happy to be here, or let's go get this, or
very happy to be there, but very happy to feel like it's a legit 10-point spread. And actually I'll talk about it in my picks. Bill Connolly's numbers have it as a 2-point game.
Right.
And that includes Alabama winning at Georgia. It's not just the Florida State thing. So Vanderbilt has a legit team this year. And if they lose to Alabama, they can still compete with LSU. They're still going to get a few of these. they have so many ranked teams left that it's going to be an uphill climb to still even they'll get bowl eligible, I would think, at 5-0, but 7, 8, 9 wins is still going to be a challenge with all these ranked teams. But they can stand toe-to-toe. They stood toe-to-toe last year. They lost to LSU by 7. They lost to Texas by 3. They beat Alabama by 5. So Pavia just brings this confidence and this cockiness that is uncharacteristic of Vanderbilt teams in the past, and it's been successful so far. So
yeah, I'm impressed with Clark Lee as well. I think I listened to his press conference the other day. They brought up the history and all that because that's what we have to do. And he was like, well, we're creating our own history. I thought it was real interesting how he said, this is year 5. And he's not disregarding the entirety of Vanderbilt football, but this is a new beginning for them and they've run with it. So looking forward to it. Should be a fun game. I still like Alabama. I just still think, unless they get to Simpson, and it's not like Alabama can't score either. So it should be a take the over type game. It's going to be a good one.
Clark knows the history of Vanderbilt too. He grew up in Nashville.
Right.
He is a walk-on running back for 3 seasons. They won 6 games in those 3 seasons. I believe he had 3 garbage time carries in his career. So he was the low man on a totem pole of a low team, but now he's flying high, and I'm happy for him. He came over from Notre Dame, of course. He was defensive coordinator there under Brian Kelly before he became head coach at Vanderbilt. So we'll see. I can't tell you, Bill, how many times after Vanderbilt beat Alabama last year, I was randomly out at a grocery store or something with a Vanderbilt t-shirt. People like, oh, you guys got Alabama. That was my favorite game of the year. Everything like that. So people still love it when Alabama loses, and Vanderbilt was the beneficiary of that last year. So can't wait. Should be a fun one, and we will have good coverage for it at sportingnews.com. So, all right, also in the 3:30 window, Boise State at number 21 Notre Dame, 3:30 on NBC. Notre Dame is a 20.5-point favorite. We don't usually break down 20-point spreads, but we love our Irish breakdown listeners, and hey, this could be an interesting game. I think we all wrote Boise State off after getting blown out by USF in week 1. But we figured out USF's pretty decent, and Boise has actually scored an average of 48 points a game since losing at USF. So Notre Dame's defense passed the test against one high-scoring offense last week against Arkansas, holding the Razorbacks to 13 points. Here comes another team that had a lot of success, so especially through the air. Quarterback Maddox Madsen, he's the guy that got him to the playoff. A year ago, he's thrown for 299 yards a game. CJ Carr, of course, lighting things up as well for Notre Dame. I think I sent you that stat. CJ Carr led touchdown drives between the Purdue and Arkansas games at 13 possessions, 13 out of 14 where he was in the game. They scored a touchdown. So he obviously is doing great too. So I don't know. You've talked about this game a little bit. You think it could be something?
I think Boise could hang around. I mean, that's a huge spread for a quality program, and if it turned another game that could turn into a little bit of a shootout. Boise had never played there, and how many times has Notre Dame been posterized by teams that come in there because I think teams that come in there for the first time are super motivated to do their best because of the history and tradition of Notre Dame. Whether it was, I mean, I know we have a lot of Irish listeners, so I don't want to insult them, but it's like rather that it was like South Florida, or did Tulsa go in there and win?
Yes, UConn,
Marshall, like
Northern Illinois.
That's what I'm saying. So like they probably gonna have a little bit of that to them, and Notre Dame is a better team. Their offense has been amazing. We mentioned CJ Carr, and the running backs and everything they have, they're at full go too. And it, not till earlier in the show when you said that, it's like we get to the end of the road and those last two spots are like Indy and Michigan, 10-2 each. I mean, I like Notre Dame's offense better than I like Michigan's offense, but I like Michigan's defense better than Notre Dame's, the way that Winks got them in year 2. So it should be a fun game, but that spread looks a little high to me. That's all I'm saying. That's a lot of points to give a team like the Broncos on the road.
Right. It's interesting. I mean, the last time Boise State was, had any attention was at week 1, and they did not perform very well. So I'm sure they're eager to atone, and that probably contributes a little bit to the spread, but they've been playing well since, so we'll see. Also in the 3:30 window, number 9 Texas at Florida. Arch, 3:30 ESPN's facing a good defense. Number 24 Virginia at undefeated Louisville, 3:30 on ESPN2, big one in the ACC. And then number 7 Penn State at UCLA, get right game for Penn State, 3:30 on CBS. Thoughts on those? Those are all pretty good.
Yeah, I think Penn State, see how they bounce back with that travel trip.
Exactly.
Virginia,
like they're so let down, then they got to go 3,000 miles to play a lousy team. So I can see kind of a sluggish performance.
Maybe a first quarter could be a little rough, but that defense is still really good. Virginia Louisville's a hidden gem on the schedule because I think Louisville's good. The Miller Moss is starting to turn a corner. They had a rough game early in the season against James Madison, but still Jeff Brom at home. So Virginia could have their kind of not a letdown, but let's see how they handle being ranked. And if they lose that game, Louisville will be ranked. And then, of course, Arch at Florida, these two quarterbacks that everybody's disappointed in. How do they go against? I think part of it is, too, like Arch is going to be going up against a very good defense. Let's see how he does. His Uncle Peyton did not have good luck with Florida. Let's see how Arch does. Eli, by the way, beat Florida once. The Gators and DJ, and it's more Billy Napier watch. How do they – a lot of people like them to cover there. and there's some light upset alerts there, but I like Texas. I like a defense. I'm still, as you can tell, it's about the third time I've talked about them. I'm still okay with the Longhorns. I still like what they have. You're muted. You're on mute. Bill, you're muted. You're on mute. There you go.
Strange. That was weird.
That's real life. Hey, we call that real life radio. We're good here.
I don't know what happened there.
So let's so I said something about Arch and Florida, and you're up.
Okay. Well, no, I said we jumped into the evening window.
Oh, wow.
Miami and Florida State. Number 3, Miami, 18, Florida State, 7:30 on ABC in Tallahassee. Miami's a 4.5-point favorite. Florida State's surprising or not so surprising, depending on who you listen to in the confidence context picks last week. Lost to Virginia, took a little air out of the balloon for this one, but still, it's Miami, Florida State. They're both ranked in the top 20. They used to be ranked in the top 10 all the time. From 86 to 03, 18 games, 13 of them. One of these two teams was ranked 1 or 2 in the country. It's just incredible. This matchup is only the second time in the last 18 games they've both been ranked in the top 20. So definitely the rivalry has faded a little bit. But what are we looking for in this game? Florida State is actually number 1 in the nation in total offense. Did not realize that. They're averaging 600 yards a game. Miami is 13th in the nation in defense. They've got Ruben Bain, who you love, at the defensive end position. I don't know. What do you think? Does Miami pass this road test? They haven't been on the road yet to have a big one.
I'm still wondering why I would text somebody instead of just saying you're on mute on a live podcast. So I was getting ready to text you. So I'm still like shaken by that. But as far as Florida State, Miami, you said it. I mean, we have an article coming out this week about like the all-time NFL game between these two schools. We did it with Ohio State and Notre Dame last year, and it was a fun exercise, but it's nothing like this. I mean, Florida State, Miami, I was telling you before, Miami, you could build a team of former NFL players and current NFL players, and it would be the greatest defense in NFL history. And I say that not, I mean, tell me I'm wrong. I'll tease one position group where I was just laughing last night, and I was looking at defensive tackles. They've had Warren Sapp and Cortez Kennedy would be their starters, backed up by Vince Wilfork and Jerome Brown. And there's a guy, I'm blanking on another guy. Let me look this up real quick. The just depth at that position where you're like, oh, Vince Wilfork, Russell Maryland, who was a number 1 pick and
Russell Maryland.
That guy that was a 3-time Super Bowl champion. They have some of the deepest NFL position groups ever. And then Florida State does too. But this is a shadow of those moments you were talking about. This isn't that at all. This is merely for Florida State. You've got to survive. And, you take a second loss in conference play, it's going to be hard to get to the conference championship game where you can still cash in that Alabama win. But still, I mean, that Virginia loss really hurt them. And Miami has a chance to really flex here and say, hey, we can go into your house and win. We are a legitimate national championship contender. A lot of people get on Mario Cristobal. I mean, about the Georgia Tech game, if we're being honest. He's a good coach. He's good with offensive linemen, good with defensive linemen, and they have it in the trenches. So if they win this game, we can start to think of them as, okay, they're probably going to play in Charlotte. and okay, they're probably going to be in the playoff. And now it'll never be the U that we remember in the 80s and 90s. I don't think we can get to that point again unless they can keep all of those recruits that they had in state. So I'm still excited for it. I'm just not as excited now because Florida State had to go and lose that game against Virginia.
The atmosphere is going to be difficult, I would think, but Carson Beck's been plenty of difficult atmospheres in his career.
Correct.
So I don't know that will be a huge advantage for Florida State. So Miami 4.5 seems about right. So we'll see where it goes from there. Keep the clicker handy in the evening. Colorado at TCU, 7:30 on Fox. That's a rematch of the Deion's first game a couple years ago. TCU is in position to get a little revenge on that one. Minnesota at number 1 Ohio State on NBC. Mississippi State at Texas A&M, 7:30 SEC Network. Suddenly that's kind of a game. And then at 10:30, if you want some good late-night QB play, Duke is at Cal, 10:30 on ESPN with Darian Mensah and Cal freshman Jaron Kiyawa Sangapolo. I blew it. I was practicing.
You were there.
Sangapulu Tele, otherwise known as JKS. So what do you like there?
I'll keep an eye on the Buckeyes as usual. They've been their defense is inching toward the historically good conversation. Yes. I don't do it often. I think the last time we did it, I went through and Alabama had one of those during the Saban era that it was like, are they going to challenge the all-time points per game record? It's really hard to do. And I always point out, 3 of the last 4 national champions, Georgia in 21, Michigan in 23, Ohio State in 24, led the nation in scoring defense. So it's a good barometer. I think that's going to be an interesting game. We'll watch Colorado TCU, obviously. And then, A&M's kind of stringing together some ugly wins and people don't love it. And I liked Mike Elko's presser last week. He's telling everybody not to be so gloomy. Good for Mike Elko. Their tests are down the road, but they got to take care of business here. So it's a good window, not a great evening window, but we got spoiled last weekend.
Stymie says if Miami wins, they should jump Ohio State. What do you think?
I mean, if we were doing he has a point, because if we were doing the playoff rankings on Tuesday, I think the committee would put Miami number 1. I think because of the collection, they'd be like, okay, they beat South Florida, beat Florida.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame's a big win. That's looking a lot better. And then they would have this game here against Florida State. So you're looking at, Florida wasn't ranked at the time, but that's 3 wins against ranked opponents. And Ohio State has 1. And we tried to pump up Washington, but Washington wasn't a ranked team. So, I think they would be in the pool. I would have them too still. I still think Ohio State how are you going to score on that defense? The only team, nobody scored 10 points on them yet. Right now, the current leader is the Ohio Bobcats with 9 points. And we're going to talk about the Bobcats here in a second. But, so I think it's close.
Okay. All right. So let's get into our confidence contest. Bender, you lead 47-36, 11-point lead. You've won every week. I picked up 7 points on Friday night last week, and then I didn't get any on Saturday. So you won 11-7, and now you lead 47-36. We pick 5 games against the spread. We order them 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, confidence style. And you have the honor once again. Kick us off for your 5-pointer.
I was 4-1 last week, and Syracuse screwed it up. So they didn't just get beat; they got beat. So
we both had that one.
I mentioned that I like the Bobcats, and I'm going to take the alma mater to start October because October is my favorite month, and they are a 14-point favorite against Ball State. I think Ball State's with a first-year coach is a work in progress. The Bobcats can score. Give me Parker Navarro and company putting up a big number in Muncie. Bobcats -14.
Okay. My 5-pointer is going to be Maryland +6.5 at home against Washington. Washington is in a letdown spot after playing Notre Dame, after playing number 1 Ohio State. They got to travel 3,000 miles to play in the not most exciting stadium environment. Maryland is 4-0 this year. They're coming off a 17-point victory at Wisconsin. Malik Washington's been solid at quarterback for them. Good spot here for a home dog. I'm taking Maryland and the points. All right, now you're muted. How about that?
I'm muted. Maryland would be 5-0, I believe, at that point. Undefeated under Mike Locksley. So keep an eye on them. My 4 is going to be Miami -4. The line's dropped a little bit. You can double check to see what that line is. But I know where they're at. I know the desperation of Florida State, but I like Canes here. I think they're good enough to go in and win. It's a little bit of a risky pick on the road. This is another road favorite. I know how risky those can be, but
4.5 I got.
I'll take it. I'm good either way. I think they're going to win by a touchdown.
Yep. Okay. All right. I like that pick. I think Miami's ready for this test. They've been pointing for it.
Right.
My 4, Wake Forest.
Plus
6.5 against Virginia Tech. At Virginia Tech. I picked against Virginia Tech against NC State earlier this year. That did not work out, but I'm going back to the well. They're actually 1-4 against the spread, and so I missed the only one that they actually covered. But anyway, Wake Forest, they had Georgia Tech beat last week. The officials missed an offside call that would have allowed Wake to run out the clock. So that was too bad for Wake. Running back Damon Claiborne, he's capable of big game. Robbie Ashford showed some flashes. I watched that game. He hits that back shoulder fade really well. He's not accurate on some other stuff, but I don't know. I think Wake is going to be a pain to play. They showed that last week against Georgia Tech, so I'm going to take the 6.5 here against Virginia Tech.
Not a bad pick at all. My 3 is going to be another risky pick, another road fave, but I like, and I'm stealing a page out of your playbook here. I'm taking UNLV on the road at Wyoming, -3.5. Dan Mullen's got talent here.
They're undefeated.
Wyoming's played kind of their big home game against Wyoming or Utah earlier this year. I like the Rebs, and Dan Mullen, look for his name start popping up in that Arkansas search.
Ooh, back to the SEC, huh?
Could happen. I think that's somebody that they should look at.
Interesting. Okay. My 3-pointer, Vanderbilt. +10.5.
There it is. I love it. Good.
We both took our alma maters this week. I mentioned last year that they, beat Alabama 40-35. Pavia's healthy again this year for the game. The offense has been humming. Not predicting a straight up victory, I would say, but that offense getting 10.5 points, the way they're operating, I think that's just too much. So I do think they keep it within 10.
Yep, I like it. My 2 is Michigan State, 11.5-point dog, Nebraska. They're not going to win, I don't think, but I think the Huskers and them are probably closer to each other. The Spartans have Aiden Childs. He'll make a few plays. It's kind of like what happened to them at USC, but as long as they don't get overwhelmed by turnovers, I think the Spartans can hang in that game. They've got a little bit of toughness to them. They're just not quite there yet. And that's honestly just a huge spread for two teams that I think are closer to each other than it looks. So give me the Spartans, 11.5. That's a big spread.
That was our theory last week with Syracuse and Duke, and it
did not work. Well, that was 4 or 5. It turned out to be a 40-point spread. Yeah.
It didn't
6.
work
That's
out.
right here. Yeah.
So, all right, 2-pointer. I'm going with Navy, -11.5 at home against Air Force. Navy 4-0, 3-0 already in the American. Blake Horvath 13-3 as a starter. And he's doing his thing again this year. Offense not quite as potent as last year, but they're still putting up a lot of points. Air Force is 1-3. They've lost 3 in a row. They've given up at least 44 points in all 3 games. They lost by 9 to Hawaii last week at home. So I'm taking Navy, -11.5.
Very good. I tried Western Kentucky earlier this season. I'm going back to the well. 2.5-point dog at Delaware. Hidden Conference USA gym. Maverick McIver's been good for the Toppers. I still think they're like the class of that conference in a lot of ways. So I'm going to, even though Delaware's been good, I mean, they beat UConn this year. So give me the toppers. The two that I almost picked that I'm leaving off as bonuses, I do think Boise State will cover the 20.5, and I think Ohio State will cover the 23.5. But our listeners are probably getting bored with me picking Ohio State every week, which I've picked 3 times. So I'll give I'll take a week off the Buckeyes.
All right. My 1-pointer, I'm going with San Diego State. -6 at home against Colorado State. Apologies to longtime Sporting News guru Bob Hilley on this one. He's a proud Ram. But this is the spread that is the furthest from ESPN Bill Connelly's SP Plus projection.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying San Diego State projects as a 15-point winner in this one. Spread's only 6. Colorado State benched third-year starting QB Braden Fowler Nicolosi. Remember him, like in those Colorado State games against Dion? He looked pretty good, but he's struggling this year. He's been benched. They're 1-3. San Diego State's 3-1. They have a 34-0 win over Cal on their resume. So let's see if I should believe in Bill Connelly.
Well, we'll find out. That's a good pick as well. So I think we're both going to have good numbers this week.
All right. So to review, you got Ohio, the alma mater, at -14. You got Miami, -4.5 on the road at Florida State. UNLV, -3.5, also on the road. Michigan State, +11.5, also on the road. And Western Kentucky, +2.5.
Everybody's on the road.
Also on the road.
We'll find
I
out.
am going with Maryland at home, +6.5. I'm going with Wake Forest getting 6.5 on the road at Virginia Tech. Vanderbilt on the road, +10.5. Navy at home, -11.5. And then San Diego State against Colorado State. And they are giving 6 at home. That's my 1-pointer. So, all right, back to the Trocchi trivia question. Miami and Florida State have combined for 5 Heisman trophies. Who are they, and how many of them went on to win the national championship?
Well, the Heisman's probably the wrong question because I did both of the greatest players list recently. So, I mean, Toretta and Testaverde are Miami's Heisman winners, which is wild that they haven't had a Heisman winner since Geno. Both of those guys did win a national title. I'm not sure they both did as a starter, though. I think Testaverde had one as a backup.
Testaverde won the 1987 Heisman.
Right, but they lost to Penn State.
To Penn State.
But I think he did they have to win
as a Heisman winner that season.
Oh, okay. So as a Heisman winner, neither one of those guys won it as the Heisman winner.
Gino Toretta lost the Sugar Bowl to Alabama.
That clears things up. Yeah, they didn't just lose that one. They lost by a lot. And that's remembered for George Teague's famous strip of Lamar Thomas. So that's clear. Okay, both of those guys won the Heisman, then lost the title game, essentially. Florida State's 3 Heisman winners are Charlie Ward. They did win it that year.
Yes.
Shouldn't have. Notre Dame should have, but topic for another day. Jameis definitely won it the Heisman year. Didn't win it the following season. Winky's the tough one because he won it. They didn't win it that year because he lost to Oklahoma.
Correct.
And the year before, Peter Warwick should have won it, but he didn't win it, and they won the national title. So there you go. I got it all sorted out.
There you go. Very good. So you nailed Trocchi trivia. Might give you a half a point in the confidence.
Well, and all 5 guys did have a national championship during. So that would be an interesting question. Is be like, how many was there ever a 4-year period from this year to this year where one of those 2 schools didn't win it? It was wild. They were so good in the 80s and 90s.
That's wild. Yep. So, all right. Very good. Well, that was fun. So we are that much closer to kickoff on Saturday. Thank you to everyone for listening to the CFB Nation All-America podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks to our group here in the CFB Nation All-America, the YouTube channel. And thank you to Irish Breakdown, your source for Notre Dame football information. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you next week.